Madlanga Commission of Inquiry is resuming after a 2-month break, and this morning 2 witnesses are expected to take the stand, continuing where it left off in December. Last month, you may recall, the Commission submitted that interim report to the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, 3 months after its first hearing. So let's get a little bit of a distillation on the months past, the work of the Commission so far, expectations from today, but also what this means in the aftermath of Witness D's murder. This is Marius van der Merwe, who was gunned down outside his Boksburg home in last year in the aftermath of his testimony at the Commission. So Ziyanda Ngobo standing by with Jeremy Veary. Good morning, Ziyanda.
Thanks, Iman, and that's exactly the note that I want to pick up on with Jeremy Veary when it comes to the murder of Marius van der Merwe in November last year. He died on the last day of public hearings here at the Commission of Inquiry. It was also on the same day that Senzo Mchunu was on the stand. But Jeremy Veary, when we talk about the levels of transparency at this Commission of Inquiry, which is something that then became a topic of discussion between the Presidency, the Justice Department and this Commission. When you look back at what Marius van der Merwe, who testified as Witness D, had to say, the specificity of the details that he gave, perhaps there was a little bit of sort of overlooking or a mistake of sorts. I'm trying to find the right word right now, but they really didn't look into that, because if I was the only one asked to dispose of a body and the people who were there on the night, they would know who exactly is speaking.
I think upon reading the affidavit of Witness D, prior to him coming, people should have realized that if he was the person who dumped the body, whether you disguise his voice or whether you disguise his face or anything, if that testimony is public, he becomes immediately at risk to be killed, because the consequence is going to result in another investigation that is going to arrest the perpetrators. So the perpetrators also watch the Madlanga Commission. So one would assume the risk assessment that at the time that you would have discerned from the statement's contents would have been sufficient to say, look, if you say I'm going to dump the body, who else would it be? So the suspects would know who they gave the instruction to do so, if what he says is correct. So yes, it should have immediately been in camera. There should have been no indication as to what was testified to, and that is the way it should have been left. The management of his statement usually needed, or his affidavit needed to be a particularly secure process to prevent leakages and those things. So we must expect, I know the word transparency is much thrown around, but in our courts, when we're dealing with key testimony or critical testimony that is, what I can say, want of a better, centrifugal to determining the outcome of a particular case, on the side of caution.
I mean, let's be fair to the Commission. They cannot force someone to take security that is offered to them, because we understand that Marius van der Merwe declined such, but also because the matter is still under investigation, we're not yet sure that there's a direct link between van der Merwe's murder and the testimony that he gave at the Commission. But I want to stay on this aspect of transparency, because it also speaks to the heart of what the Commission itself had committed to, insofar as being able to share with South Africans what's happening. What do you think should change then going forward, as we've mentioned, around certain details and really putting someone at risk, even sometimes inadvertently?
Okay. Firstly, to me, transparency applies to the outcome and to the integrity of this process of the Commission. That is where it applies. But when we're dealing with testimony that has not yet been canvassed in a criminal court hereafter, we're dealing with a risk that this Commission can't handle to a witness. And there, they say that rule of transparency should not apply. It is not relevant there. What is relevant there is the protection of a potential witness, and even if that witness refuses, I think, protection for that matter, find other ways to ensure that what that witness is going to say is so guarded, like in camera, that nobody will be able to determine whether that witness was there or not. So, to me, that is the crucial thing. I mean,
I mean,
but let's not apply what we talk about constitutionally in terms of transparency to things that might sabotage or the outcome of a particular investigation, which by its nature will be sub judice until it comes to a court.
I mean, it's going to become very important if I just reflect back on what Jeremy Michaels, the spokesperson, has had to say about who to expect. We expect Sulaiman Karim, the Northwest businessman that's been mentioned here at the Commission, the Deputy National Commissioner, Shedrick Sibia, who's currently on suspension, Major-General Sonona. These are all people who are still going to be responding to these allegations. And we know the President got that interim report, and we reflected in the previous hour about whether or not there was enough evidence for the President to act on. I just wanted to pause there because the President also did reflect on this during the opening of the ANC's Lekgotla over the weekend.
To tackle infrastructure crime, illegal mining, gangsterism and other types of crime, there are areas where we've seen some progress. However, the progress we need to make must be seen and felt by South Africans. So there is still a gap, and we need to therefore do more. Because most South Africans have yet to feel the effects of this work. Their confidence is further undermined by the evidence that is before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry and the ad hoc committee, hearing allegations of the infiltration of the police by criminal syndicates. In 2026, this needs to change. South Africans need to see action being taken to prevent crime and to bring those responsible to book. Communities need to be mobilized.
Not particularly hard-hitting. Do you think South Africans are going to have more confidence in the processes that are unfolding? I think there was a level of expectation that once the interim report is on the President's desk, one or two people might have been picked up by the police.
Yeah, but no, those were allegations. Nothing was thoroughly canvassed through an independent investigative process that is court-directed. So, I mean, it's an unrealistic expectation for me, in the absence of the due process that are required to work those allegations to a particular outcome through detective work. To expect that you can take action prematurely. Remember what other people tried to do with the disciplinary things, and they were overturned.
Even at a political level, Jeremy, for someone like Senzo Mchunu, who, to be fair on him, he's only been able to respond to the allegations of that 31st of December disbandment letter and not fully canvassed all the other issues that have, or the other allegations rather, that were made against him by KZN top cop and Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
I think where the President has the power, and his power goes a little bit beyond what the process I'm talking about. He can remove ministers if he wants to. He can give a reason for doing so if he wants to. That does not go through the other due process that I'm talking about. So if he wants to make a decision about Minister Mkhunu, he should make it. If he wants to make a decision that says maybe the National Commissioner didn't have his eyes on the board properly and didn't have a hand on the thing, so that another general from another province must trigger something that he was supposed to know in the first place and do something, he should have acted. And the President can say, listen, you were appointed by me.
Yeah.
Leave, because you did not keep your hand on matters. Another general below your rank had to tell you what is going on.
Is it not a matter of timing, Jeremy? And we know how President Cyril Ramaphosa likes to operate from what we've seen over the years, just buys his time, tries to get through due process. I mean, let's just say after that 6th of July briefing that he decided to suspend a whole bunch of people like Fani Masemola, who is empowered to suspend, perhaps even the KZN top cop alongside Sibia. What implication would that have had? What impact would that have had, if at all? Because you could ask questions as to why the president also did not do that.
You see, I would assume with that he would have had replacements in mind. And one would assume the replacements would not contribute to the same challenges created by those he replaced. That is the way we go. That's its prerogative to make that decision. Like I said, it is entirely within his power. As to why or not and the conditions under which he makes such decisions, he must remember when it comes to decisions where he appointed people, the kind of due process that I described earlier and employment practices that require disciplinary regulations in an institution are in something entirely different. So let's hope that if he says, he cannot say, you must go and do it.
Yeah.
Because we have to wait for a certain outcome. We have to follow. He must tell us, okay, fine, we are going to get there. What are you going to do?
Well, expectations, actions that can or cannot be taken. 45 days of testimony is what we got to hear last year. Iman, it's the first day of public hearings for 2026, phase 2 of this particular inquiry, where those who've been implicated will be given an opportunity to respond. But in the meantime, how much investigative capacity does this Commission of Inquiry have? How closely is the president watching the developments? And what implications will they have on the political landscape, but in particular for the criminal justice system? These are all issues that I think South Africans have at the top of their minds, bearing in mind that the judiciary itself has also been implicated. What answers will we be hearing? So much to talk about, Iman, but I'm going to hand it back to you for now.
The blue line and the gavel on trial in